stood at the front lines of law, leadership, and public service. Attorney Karen Jimeno, sharp, steady, a lawyer, and educator, turns complex issues into clear insight. Attorney Mike Toledo, seasoned, fearless, a strategist and communicator whose voice has shaped public understanding of law and governance. Together, they make the law accessible, connecting principles with real-life questions, confronting the issues that define our nation. This is ABOGADO!
Good evening and welcome to ABOGADO, where we draw the legal line between planning a crime and committing one. I'm Attorney Mike Toledo.
And I'm Attorney Karen Jimeno. Tonight, we look at when a scheme becomes unlawful and how far a lawyer can go for a client. Let's take a closer look.
A plan is not always a crime. Our laws generally do not punish thoughts, private agreements, or mere preparation. But when does planning cross the line? Is recruiting someone enough? Preparing an affidavit? Taking steps to carry out an alleged scheme? And when lawyers act for a client, where does legitimate advocacy end and possible legal liability begin? As we balance prevention with the principle that intent alone is not enough, we ask, when does an alleged honey trap plot become a crime?
Our first guest is Attorney Antonio Ligon, former National Executive Director of the Integrated Bar of the Philippines. He is also the president of Dangal ng Lipi Foundation and a longtime faculty member at De La Salle University College of Law.
Joining him is Attorney Arbie Buenaflor, senior partner at Reo and Buenaflor Law Offices and a litigation lawyer across the private and public sectors. He currently serves as an investigating commissioner of the Integrated Bar of the Philippines, or the IBP. Attorneys, mga compañeros, good evening and thank you so much for joining us this evening.
It's our pleasure. Good evening, Mike. Good evening, Attorney Karen.
And it's
Good evening,
wonderful
Mike,
to
Karen.
have
Thank you very much for inviting us.
two very well-experienced lawyers with us tonight. So first, let's talk about how the next hour will move. Each guest will have an opportunity to have their opening statement. And then we'll have two subtopics, each with an open exchange. And then every guest leaves us with a final thought.
The facts in brief and as reported, investigators are looking into an alleged scheme to lure a senior official into a compromising setup, then use sworn statements or affidavits from recruited women to pin on him crimes that never happened. All those named deny wrongdoing, and as of today, as of late August 2026, formal criminal charges have not yet been filed in court. The legal question: when does a plan become a crime the state can prosecute?
Attorney Tony, we begin with the timing. As a matter of principle, at what stage does a plan become more than mere preparation? And how is preparation different from an attempt to commit a crime? You have 2 minutes.
Yeah, well, first of all, a plan by itself is not a crime. And under our revised penal code, even the plan to commit conspiracy, unless there is a specific crime for that, is not generally a crime. So a plan remains a plan. Of course, we will have to see if there's an overt act on that plan. So that's the general rule. Now, if a lawyer is involved in that kind of thing, that will apply also, unless there's a specific crime that, provides that a plan is a commission of a crime. Generally, there is no crime yet. Again, we will have to look at the Code of Professional Responsibility when it comes to the lawyer.
So you're saying, malabo na magkaroon ng crime ito under the revised penal code or any special laws that punish crimes. But for the lawyers, baka magkaroon ng violation doon
Only
sa
on the Code of Professional,
Responsibility.
Responsibility because it requires a degree of, a degree of care in terms of going out as a professional member of the bar. No?
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much, Attorney Tony. Now, Attorney Arbie, how direct must an overt act be before criminal liability attaches? And can someone incur liability even if the intended victim never suffers any actual harm?
Going back to what my good kumpanyero mentioned earlier, it's really all about the acts involved dito. Tama ang sabi, a plan remains a plan. And in fact, kahit magsaliksik ka sa buong revised penal code, wala ka talagang makikitang honey trap dyan. Wala. No? However, ang importante talaga dito legally, yung specific na conducts talaga ang titignan dito para makomit yung crime. So, depende ito sa mapapatunayan, yung several distinct offenses din actually yung pwedeng ma-apply dito. And it's not really concentrated on one act. It's actually a series of different acts that can generate different possible cases that might be filed. So, if we're talking about an overt act, definitely it really plays a crucial part kung meron nga bang criminal liability or even yung administrative liabilities as lawyers.
Okay, very clear. Thank you so much, attorneys. When we come back, the first subtopic, how far a scheme must travel before the state may act? This is Abogado. We're back. Tonight's question once more. When does an alleged honey trap plot become a crime? With us are Attorney Antonio Ligon and Attorney Arbie Buenaflor.
Now, the starting rule is simple. A person may think about or even plan a crime without liability until there is an overt act. Article 6 of the Revised Penal Code marks that line, while Article 8 generally leaves conspiracy and proposal unpunished unless the law provides otherwise. But special laws, such as the anti-trafficking laws, can punish conduct earlier, including recruitment and attempt.
Attorney Tony,
Yeah.
since honey trap is not itself a crime, what offenses could potentially arise from such a scheme? Could recruiting someone to participate already create criminal liability?
Yeah, that's a good question. Actually, honey trap, there's no jurisprudence on honey trap, no? But the latest the Supreme Court said about this on, if I recall it right, in People versus Doria, that was a 99 case, the Supreme Court made a distinction between entrapment and instigation. Now, honey trap, there will be a crime if there's an instigation. If the police officers or investigators merely facilitated, even if they use deception in entrapting the accused, then there is already a crime, no?
Sinong may kasalanan doon? Let's say,
Well,
kasi maraming entrapment operations,
oo.
di ba? And yet, hindi pinaparusahan yung
Simplihin
nag-entrap.
natin, no? Simplihan natin.
Bigay ka ng example.
Halimbawa, kilala nila itong tao na nagsusulisit ng minor, no? Na gustong to sleep with a minor. So, ang entrapment dyan will involve, you will get someone to pose as a minor so that, he can lure this person to commit that act.
Kumbaga,
So that's
ginagamit to sa
entrapment.
mga di ba, mga pedophile, for
Alam
example.
mo nang itong taong to may record na
Oo.
gano'n.
So, kunwari mga nag-entrap ka ng pedophile.
So yung crime itself, it starts from the accused. Isa instigator, walang crime, gagawa ka ng mga paraan, sasabihin mo, uy, alokin mo siya, ganito. You will bribe a witness to say na, oh, you try to engage him into an illegal act, like sexual act. And we will provide money for you.
Or pilitin mong mag-drugs with you,
yeah.
for example.
So
Okay.
those are instigator na yung crime nagsimula wala namang plano yung tao, but binigyan mo ng dahilan para pag-commit ng crime. So yun yung pinaka-closest dito sa honey trap issue na to.
And ang instigator, ang pinaparusahan yung nag-instigate.
Yes, oo.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Attorney Tony. Now, Attorney Arbie, could arranging a meeting or booking a location or instructing someone on what to say or do cross the line into criminal conduct?
Well, we have to look at the facts muna, no? Unang-una siguro ilagay muna natin sa context kung ano muna yung nasa balita so far, no? What you know is what I know, and it's just based on what's being released right now. So, tignan natin muna dun sa context na gaya kanina nang na-mention, yung nag-i-instigate dito, pwedeng siyang makasuhan, pero paano kung hindi rin naman talaga niya planong ma-instigate ito? Like for example, if there are so-called companions, no? You book them for a time to be with them, to talk to them. There's nothing illegal about that, diba? And at the same time, what if ang mga kinuha ng mga tao or personalities na naandun is simply for a conversation? There's nothing wrong with that. However, it really complicates things kung yung tao na yon kagaya ng nasabi nyo, is papagawin ng mga bagay na illegal na para ma-set up. Like for example, you offer them drugs, or for example, you engage in coitus, diba? And then,
you bribe them.
Yeah, oo, you bribe them, or you basically put them into compromising positions, and then eventually either you recruit them or you blackmail them, no? So, yung mga ganyang bagay, it's really very possible na talagang mag-cross ka na ng line kasi it's very thin eh. The line is very thin. And at the same time, just like what you mentioned, even yung pakikipag-meeting doon sa preparation ng mga false testimony, that's also venturing into a very thin line, very thin ice, no, yung ini-escape nila dito. But as far as yung just meeting someone, it really depends on what the meeting is all about and the intent, of course.
Okay.
Okay, thank you so much, Attorney Arbie. Now let's bring the rest of this to the table. So let's have an open discussion. And for me, I'd like to put more color based on what we know. Like you said, Attorney Arbie, siguro yung alam natin is what was made available to the public, but let's
Yes.
use those as hypothetical examples para
because-
naman
Yeah.
mas maintindihan ng mga tao yung ano bang pinag-uusapan natin, no?
Talagang
That's-
hypothetical kasi walang kaso pa eh.
That's
Yes,
true.
wala pa.
That's the only way for them to understand.
Yeah.
Kasi otherwise, it may become just too academic. So
Yeah.
tama si Attorney Karen. Let's use the real ongoing. There's no case
Oo,
yet.
the versions that
Ongoing
we've heard.
Versions that
Oo.
we've heard
Yeah.
from the investigators as well as from the parties concerned. And let's discuss on the basis of that.
Oo, yung legality. So,
Yeah.
for example, kung totoo man na sinasabi ng mga accused dito na wala naman silang pinaplano but ang kusang lumapit sa kanila is the alias Ken, na meron daw mga babae talagang for hire at marami daw politiko na customers. So, at that point, let's say kung yung mga inaakusahan ay sinabi na, o sige, we can... Ito na yung hypothetical part.
Yes.
Let's say sinabi talaga nila, ipakilala natin dito sa isang government official na ito. At kung mag-date sila or lumabas sila, then mag-execute kayo ng affidavit doon sa nangyari. Is that a crime?
Ayan, dyan napapasok yung difference between entrapment and instigation.
Yes.
If there is a record na this person is really soliciting prostitutes, no, to satisfy the carnal desire, any report lang nun, and they want to find the truth about it, then merong crime yan.
Sino may crime po?
Kung nasolicit, nagkaroon na nga ng overt act.
So, ang may crime ay yung nagpa-solicit. So, let's say, in this hypothetical example,
Yeah,
kung yung
oo.
government official,
nagsolicit
inalokan
talaga.
siya nung
Yeah.
manager ng mga babae at nag-hire siya ng mga babae, then ang may crime dito is the government official.
Yes.
For what crime?
Solicitation of prostitution. So, talagang, and di lang yun. Siyempre, as a government official, you should act modesty and all those required of law to to act with with propriety. No?
Attorney Arbie, no? And Attorney Tony, isa sa mga sinasabi nila is, ang una daw talagang gusto nilang gawin ay they wanted to be some sort of a moral guardians, no?
Yeah.
And they allegedly
Moral guardians.
Allegedly, they heard that a particular high official is involved in solicitation and engaging with other illegal activities with the ladies that they get. But that was their plan, and that is why that's why they asked the women to execute affidavits to that effect. That is the position of one person.
Partner, ang sinasabi ba dito, ang isinusolicit na affidavits is
Yun
for
daw.
acts that already happened, na parang maggawa kayo ng affidavit
Yes.
doon sa mga nagawa na nitong government official na ito.
But ang nangyari ngayon ay nagsalita yung talent manager. The talent manager said,
Pinagawa kami.
we understand that may plano itong mga to na i-trap nga, no? Ang isang high government officials. But so we will be getting some women, no? Which is again, that's already a violation of the anti-trafficking law.
Yeah.
No? We'll bring these women and then we will have them execute affidavits that such and such and such happen.
Yeah.
So it's different from
Yeah.
the first.
Yes,
From the
yes.
first.
So siguro paghiwalayin natin yung tanong na yun. Yung
Yeah.
first scenario na nangyari na, so let's say, itong government official ay nag-hire na talaga ng mga babae in the
Yeah.
past. At ang sinasabi lang naman ng mga accused ay mag-execute kayo ng affidavits doon sa mga
Nangyari in the past.
na hinire
Yes.
kayo at let's say for example, nakipagtalik sa inyo itong government official. Anong crime po doon?
Well, kung nangyari yun in the past, suki pala to. Di ba? But nevertheless, siguro medyo ibalik din natin muna dun sa konteksto. No? Kasi sa example natin, ang nag-hire dito, for example, a government official. No? But typically, when these things happen, merong merong pimp dyan eh.
Yun nga.
May
Oo,
buga.
so, oo.
Talent manager.
Oh, the
Yeah.
talent manager.
Talent
Yes.
manager, supposedly.
Sorry for the term. Siguro pimp kung engaged sa
Go between na
prostitution,
lang.
di ba?
To simplify, go
Oo,
between.
To simplify, di ba? Ngayon, kailangan malaman din natin dito, sino ba talaga yung nagbayad din? Di ba? Kung binayaran ba yan directly nung tao na nag-solicit? O baka naman hindi naman direkta yung payment, baka through another conduit. So mapupunta naman tayo dito sa status din dito ng mga women involved in our example, di ba? Kasi they could be classified as victims too eh. If
Yes.
they don't know kung ano yung papagawin sa kanila, di ba? But if sinabihan sila na, hindi, sige, i-trap mo ito, tapos mag-engage kayo sa ganito, tapos make sure facing kayo sa ganitong direction kasi nandun yung camera. Di ba? What if ganun ang situation? Ilalagay mo sa...
I will stop you there, Attorney
Yes.
Arbie, kasi dalawa yung situations na
Yeah.
in-outline ni
Yeah.
Attorney Mike. Yung first situation daw ay, ito yung isang scenario na napag-usapan. Meron ng mga nangyari in the past na
In the
na-hire itong government
And they
official.
want to expose.
And
They
ang
want to
gusto lang
expose.
nilang gawin ay, tanungin yung mga babae, pwede ba kayo mag-execute ng affidavit na para patunayan na hinire kayo dati nitong government official na to at may nangyari at sinulicit kayo. So, yun ba may crime yun for the accused na or yung mga, para dun sa mga nagsolicit ng affidavit?
Well, kung nangyari na naman siya in the past, there are several laws na pwede nating tignan dyan. No? Paano kung naging girlfriend niya pala to? So we could actually look into yung anti-vowsy. Di ba? Kasi sabi naman doon, any person, di ba,
Yeah.
na nagkaroon ng
Was a relationship.
dating relationship. That's the
Yeah.
term eh, no? The dating relationship.
Yes.
Perhaps, pwedeng mapasok doon. Ayun, pwede ding pumasok dito yung trafficking in persons.
For the pimp to at saka dun sa nag-hire.
Oh, it could also go na even against doon sa babae na hired. Like I said, paano kung alam niya?
Yes.
Paano kung modus talaga nila 'yon? 'Di ba? So, pwedeng victim, pwedeng hindi.
Pero for
Yeah.
those that asked for the affidavits, may crime ba doon? For the lawyers that said, mag-execute kayo affidavit para ma-expose to na yung government official
That's
na
a
yan.
sensitive
Nag-hire
issue.
ng babae.
Very
Ito yung
sensitive.
first
You're now
one.
saying
First
it's a
hypothetical.
lawyer who crafted the affidavit
Who's
and
asking?
instructed.
No, who's asking na mag-execute kayo ng mga affidavit kasi...
There's nothing wrong.
Oo. So
If
yun
you're
yung first
a lawyer,
part.
you
Oo.
ask them about, what's this honey trap? You advise them, you tell them, you investigate on this, there's nothing wrong.
Oo. So wala pang honey trap doon or wala pang
Yes.
potential offense.
Sa scenario 1.
Siguro
Scenario one, correct.
Yung scenario 2 mas complicated, partner.
Yes.
Kasi nung sinabi mo nga,
Yung sa scenario 2, yun na nga, no? Parang yun na, you're trying to trap, no? Parang
Yeah.
pwede bang alam namin na no? Pwede bang i-recruit namin kayo? We want to pin down a particular high government official and to be caught in the act, no? So eto kukunin namin kayo, kukontakin natin yung high government officials, tapos mag-ready na tayo ng affidavit. In fact, ida-draft na namin yung affidavit at basahin nyo na lang at kung gusto nyo, magdagdag na lang kayo, ready. And then of course, babayaran namin kayo. Di ba? Because there was an exchange, there was a promise to be paid. And we know in the anti-trafficking law, that's a violation. Not only the women, but those who actually encourage it and those who participated in it.
Yes,
diba?
yes,
And may qualified anti-trafficking pa kung minor. So sa ganung sitwasyon na sinabi ni Attorney Karen, ano na ang mga liabilities dyan?
anong crime na yan?
Maganda muna sigurong malaman dito, when does the lawyer come in? Siya ba'y pinuntahan para ikonsulta? Diba?
Parang yun ata yung
Or
sinasabi
siya
nila,
ba
no?
ay-
Dinapitan sila nung talent manager. Yung talent manager ang lumapit sa kanila
Na
para sabihin na nagmamanage ako ng mga
Yes.
babae at sila yung hina-hire ng mga...
Yeah, kasi definitely hindi naman magvo-volunteer siguro yung lawyer unless i-approach.
At saka paano naman niya malalaman, no?
Yes,
Sino
he
yung mga
wouldn't know.
babae?
Yeah.
Oo.
Di ba?
So,
Pwedeng
Saka sa aking pananaw, partner, the lawyers being present there, it does not in any way prove that they're guilty of anything because as a lawyer, pag linapitan ka ng potential client and it is your responsibility to represent your client or potential client as zealous as possible.
Yes.
And the code of professional responsibility requires you to also ensure that you listen to your client, you defend them to your best of abilities. And one of the functions of a lawyer is to get your statement. So for as long as you stick to the facts, and for as long as you are just chronicling kung ano talaga sinabi nila without adding anything, especially something that is false, then sa aking pananaw, wala silang kasalanan. Even assuming that these women are women of perhaps questionable backgrounds. Di ba? Tama ba sabihin natin yun?
Agree ako dyan, Panyero Mike. Kasi the duty of the lawyer, first of all, is to the client.
Yes.
But of course, he cannot use that fidelity to the client to commit a crime.
Correct.
So, ibig sabihin, ang ginawa lang niya is factual, drafting the document. Ito yung sinabi nyo, ilalagay ko sa dokumento. But not to instigate, not to push them to commit something. And not to be involved in the execution.
Correct.
Kasi kung, sige, ito gagawin natin. Siya na mismo nagplano kung paano i-execute yung pag-instigate or pag-entrap, no? So, nawawala ka na dun sa independence mo because you are required to be independent also in the practice of your profession. Independence meaning, even if the client wants this, meron kang independent judgment. And then yung propriety, and then of course yung accountability. Accountable ka sa action mo kahit na you have that duty to be loyal to your client. No? And yun nga, makocross mo yung line na yun if you involve yourself in planning an illegal scheme.
So kaya we made that distinction.
Yes,
Yung first
oo.
scenario that you mentioned, partner, na nangyari na in the past at nung nakwento sa kanila na merong gantong government official na nag-hire ng mga babae at kung sinabi ng lawyer na mag-execute kayo ng affidavits para ma-expose natin to.
Yes.
At that point, you're saying wala pang criminal
Wala,
offense there.
there's none.
But if
Oo.
kasama siya sa nagplano na,
Oo.
sige, alukin ninyo.
that's
Tapos, gawa tayo ng ganitong affidavit.
different ball game na yun.
Overt act na yun.
And at the
yes.
same time, maidagdag ko lang, if it's just simply chronicling kung ano yung statement ng client na lumapit sa'yo, that's perfectly normal legal work. And in fact, maidagdag ko lang, hindi naman sa pagko-coach, However, to articulate kung ano yung statements nung client or nung kausap mo, na kumukonsulta, there's also no problem with that. Kasi ina-articulate mo lang naman on how to express yung kanyang sarili better, especially if it's written. Di ba? Kasi there are instances, and we have all gone through this, meron tayong mga gusto lang naman na kunin na specific facts pagdating sa isang kaso. Like for example, nasan po kayo nung araw na ito, ano pong ginagawa ninyo, bakit kayo nandun. hindi niya naman po kailangan ikwento kung ano yung kulay ng pinili niyang blouse. Di po ba? So, if the duty ng lawyer is to simply
guide.
chronicle, to guide, articulate, there's no problem with that. But, it becomes a totally different ball game kung naging scriptwriter na mismo
Correct.
yung lawyer. Ganito ang gagawin natin. Kasi ganito. Kunwari, nandun ka. Yun talaga. Talaga nagko-coerce ka na.
Fabrication na yun.
Yes. Fabrication na talaga. So,
Okay.
doon na papasok.
Kaya pag-prepare nga na, when I was actively practicing law, then sometimes we come out as the private prosecutor and we help prepare the complaint affidavit filed before the fiscal's office.
Yeah.
Ang una mong titignan nga, just the facts and then making sure that the facts na lalabas would form the elements of the crime that you're going to be accusing the respondent.
Yes.
Diba? At that time,
Or
respondent
sometimes
pa
you
siya.
help them kasi marami ako na-encounter na clients na madaldal talaga.
Yes.
At marami
Masyado,
marami
masasabi.
kikwento na
Kaya
hindi
yung-
relevant na ilagay, di ba? So,
Sabi nga,
it's
attorney,
our job to
madaming
filter.
ebas.
Oo.
Ang dami
Madaming ebas, sabi.
ginagamit
sabi.
dyan. Ultimate
Oo.
facts.
Kaya di ba,
Ultimate
it's our
facts.
job
Lang, oo.
to filter that and
Correct.
then write the ultimate facts,
Ultimate
allegations
facts,
of
oo.
ultimate
And
facts.
also, we should also remember, for every statement, there should be an accompanying piece of evidence to support it. Di
May
ba?
mga annexes yun, di ba?
Yeah,
Minsan.
like for example, sabihin ng isang kliyente, nasa Pilipinas po ako noon. So what would that support? Di ba? Yung kanyang travel records, passport niya. Di ba? Every statement, mayroon dapat yung kaakibat na ebidensya.
Okay, thank you so much, attorneys. After the break, we move from the plot to the people who lend it to their craft, the lawyers. This is Abogado.
Welcome back and thanks for joining us. You're still watching Abogado. To be clear, and let me repeat, to be clear, no one involved in the alleged honey trap plot stands guilty unless proven so in court. More broadly, lawyers are expected to represent their clients zealously while remaining bound by their duties to the court and to the law. Tonight, we look at where those professional duties begin and end when questions of possible wrongdoing arise.
Attorney Tony, where does zealous representation end and participation in a client's wrongdoing begin? Could knowingly drafting or helping prepare a false affidavit make a lawyer part of the underlying offense?
Well, the adjective that you use is false. False.
So make a distinction na kung,
Yeah,
let's say,
yeah.
false or kung accurate.
Kung accurate ang affidavit, walang problema. But if it's false and tend to distort the truth, then the lawyer will have a responsibility under the Code of Professional Responsibility.
But is it the same responsibility as the underlying offense? Let's say, in this case, kung trafficking in women ang offense or prostitution, would the lawyer that helped prepare an affidavit because they're trying to implicate someone be also involved yun dun sa let's say conspiracy for human
Yeah.
trafficking or conspiracy to
Again, we'll look at the way the lawyer crafted the affidavit. If it is the concoction already of the lawyer and veering away from the facts narrated by the client, medyo malayo na talaga sa katotohanan. Gusto lang may maipakita na may mali, pero hindi ito talaga totoo yun. Meron ng pananagutan ng abogado
anong
doon.
offense po yun?
Well, under the Code of Professional Responsibility, yung fidelity mo to client ends when you are already committing a crime, a wrongdoing. What is a wrongdoing? When you're trying to put in another's mouth something that did not happen. Tuturuan mo na siyang magsinungaling.
Ano pong offense yun sa
fabrication.
revised penal code?
Well, sa revised penal code, I cannot think one right now, no? But yung false testimony, hindi naman siya. Kasi
Oo,
ang magsasign,
diba? Hindi rin naman siya yung
Hindi
perjury.
rin. Yung
Kasi
perjury,
hindi naman siya
hindi
yung
siya
nanumpa.
magsasign eh.
Oo.
So talagang ang malinaw lang sa akin yung sa Code of Professional Responsibility. Your obligation to be sa proprieties mo as a lawyer na dapat you should act with honesty, binabiolate mo yun, no? And then, again, you cannot escape that responsibility by hiding under the cloak of lawyer-client privilege relationship. Hindi mo na pwedeng magamit yon dahil kasangkot ka na sa paggawa ng mali sa kliyente mo. So doon mag-e-end to that question. Mag-e-end yung responsibility mo, your zealousness, when you are already telling the other person to tell false or untruthful statements.
Thank you. Thank you, Attorney Tony. Now, Attorney Arbie, what may a lawyer legitimately do when preparing a client or witness for a case? And what would indicate that the lawyer was not merely providing legal services, but knowingly and consciously participating in a scheme?
Well, I can think of a few, no? But balikan lang muna natin dito yung duties as mentioned by our good kumpanyero. Baka pagalitan kasi ako ni Attorney Vicky Luanson, yun ang prof ko ng legal ethics.
Ano ba?
Si Attorney Vicky is a good friend of my mom.
Siya yung professor ko.
Okay.
Nakasama ko
Merong
naman siya sa law office.
Okay. So, meron talaga kasi tayong 4 basic duties.
Okay.
No? Number 1, ang duty ng lawyer is, number 1, duty to society. No? And then we have duty to the courts, duty to the profession, and then duty to the client. Hindi naman din pwede na meron lang tayong pipiliin dyan. But of course, just like what was mentioned earlier, we should represent our clients zealously. However, anything more than that, di ba, na na-obscure na dito ang katotohanan and fabrications, that's the time na magkakaroon na tayo ng problema. No? So, bukod dun sa possible na case na ma-file, no, pagdating sa administrative, no, na aspect ng kanyang practice, possible din kasi na yun nga makapag-file ang tawag dito, ang ating law enforcement agency siguro ng tawag dito, perjury. Of course, that's number 1, no, offering false testimony. And then in fact, pwede nga rin yan obstruction of justice eh. Oo. Kasi doon sa
Pero
ating
yung perjury, hindi against the lawyer because hindi naman siya yung
hindi against sa kanya.
Yeah.
However, paano din kasi dito kung ang kakasuhan dun sa lawyer ay yung kanyang attestation. 'Di ba? Sa ating judicial affidavit ngayon, meron na po tayong attestation clause. 'Di ba?
Yes.
Paano kung sinasabi mo, totoo pala yun, ikaw ang nag-prepare, pagkatapos problema naman pala. So, papasok din dyan yung, gaya ng sabi ko kanina, yung obstruction of justice. Kasi kapag nag-introduce ka ng isang pleading na hindi naman makatotohanan, mai-influence yun na magkaroon ng isang kaso na hindi naman totoo. Kasi what's ultimately frowned upon dito talaga isang pagsisinungaling eh. Yung fraud, yung deceit. Diba? So, anything na magpo-produce niyan, may posible talagang kaso na pwedeng ma-file.
Okay. Thank you so much, attorneys. And now we are open again for a discussion, and we'll have 6 minutes for this. I'd like to start off with a question on the difference between entrapment and instigation, because it's one of the things I learned in law school, diba, sa criminal law. Instigation is penalized, but entrapment is not. So pag alam mong that person commits a certain crime and then you entrap them, then wala kang liability, di ba?
Kagaya ng partner, di ba, kunya sa drugs, di ba? Pag bibili,
alam mo ng, let's say, alam mo ng drug user.
Mark money, di ba?
Tapos binentahan mo, parang, meron for sale yun. Tapos pumunta nga yung drug user at bumili by using mark money, na entrap mo siya so that you can prove the case in court.
Yeah.
Then, that's perfectly legal. So I guess the question here is, kung nalaman nung mga tao dito na involved na this certain government official really hires women, then if they tell the handler or the pimp in this case na, sige, bayaan mo na mag-offer ulit kayo ng babae, and pagka ginawa niya, then we will execute affidavits or help execute the affidavits of the women para patunayan na ginagawa niya talaga to. Is that similar to an entrapment operation and therefore walang criminal liability?
Yeah, walang criminal liability ang police officer or the investigator kasi yung entrapment is legal, no? Ang nagkakaroon ng liability pag instigation, kaya nagkakaroon naman ng acquittal. Ibig sabihin, napatunayan mo na nag-instigate lang itong mga police officer, acquitted yung accused. Pag entrapment, alam natin yan, mako-convict yung accused dahil valid yung procedure ng entrapment. Because the criminal intent starts with the accused. Ang gagawin mo lang, you deceive a plan. In fact, kahit na may deception ang gagawin mo, na magpo-post ka na ganitong tao, hindi ka naman totoong ganon. Pero because of that, nakuha mo siya, you lured him or her into that action and na-entrap mo siya, then he can be convicted.
Oo. So in this
There's
case,
no question
can
on the
the
mode.
honey trap operation, kung ang circumstances would be
The person
ganun
that
nga,
you said.
oo, yung pala this government official.
Meron
Again,
na talagang
hypothetical.
record.
May record na
Oo.
talaga of hiring women and therefore the lawyers involved said, sige, pag-alokin niyo ulit ng babae at pagka hinire niya at ginawa niya ulit na nag-engage siya in I'm trying to be diplomatic, like actions with these women, then tutulungan namin yung mga babae na mag-execute ng affidavit para ma-expose ito or ma-report siya sa police.
Nako-complicate kasi kapag sinaluan natin na yung lawyer ang gumagawa ng mga ganong plan or scheme. Kung halimbawa, ordinary policeman yan, na talagang ganon ang ginagawa nila, hindi magiging controversial or complicated.
Because nasa trabaho nila.
Trabaho nila yun. Kasi trabaho nila mag-entrap eh.
Yeah.
Because alam nila, ito, na profile na nila, ito talaga, ginagawa yan. So, para lang ma-caught in the act natin, we will do the same thing. Pero kung lawyer ang involved, doon na may question ng hanggang saan yung practice mo of your code of professional responsibility. Tama yung sinabi ni Panyero na you have a duty to the society, to the court, to your client. Pero kung lalagpas na doon at gagawa ka na ng hindi totoo, magpapabricate ka na, magdi-design ka para maipakita mo, eto, mali. Pero wala talaga doon yun, may pananagot.
I think
ng
that's
lawyer.
very clear.
Yes,
na pagka
yes.
binago mo na yung facts.
Yes, yes.
Attorney Arbie,
Yes.
what can you say or add to that?
Well, yun nga, kapag lumampas ka dun sa duties mo and you introduce something that did not really happen, that's the time talaga na magkakaroon ka talaga ng problema as a lawyer. No? Pero magandang malaman dito, balikan ko lang yung scenario. Paano kung itong government official na to, talagang modus niya to eh. Mahilig siyang kumuha ng mga, sorry for the term, babaeng bayaran. No, for his personal pleasure.
Addition term is solicitation na lang.
Diba? No? Kung gano'n ang gustong ma-expose, siguro in a way, yung lawyer should also be in a high moral ground, no? Pero syempre, not to the point naman na sabihin na ganito ang gawin mo, na hindi na nangyari, di ba? But if it's a genuine consultation, no, it's your duty as a lawyer talaga na tulungan yung tao, di ba? Pero kung gumagawa ka talaga ng plot, mahirap, masyadong malabo.
Pero
Simple,
if you're
ano
saying,
yan?
Attorney Tony, na
Yeah.
dapat kasi ang normally nag-conduct ng mga entrapment operations are police. In this case, did the lawyers have a moral or legal obligation to just ask the police to do the entrapment even if this is a high-ranking government official?
Well, ang magiging participation mo lang is to advise ganito mangyayari. But for you to decide on how this will be executed, medyo may question mark.
Yeah.
Kasi, ano ba ang duty ng lawyer? The duty of the lawyer is to explain, oh, ito yung crime, itong consequences niyan. Pero hindi ikaw ang primary responsible on how to go about catching the accused on the act. Kasi police officers, you are an officer of the court, but not an officer of, the police, no? So, magkakaiba yun, no? Maliban lang kung halimbawa the policeman or the victim will ask the help of the lawyer, paano ho bang maganda? Now, again, your advice will be limited to the professional conduct. Hindi pwedeng magdi-devise ka ng scheme. Kasi pag meron ka ng na-devise na scheme, pumapasok na yung deceit eh.
Yeah.
Papasok na yung parang may question na, ano ba to? Nasa katotohanan na. Kasi meron ng intent, no? And that intent can be evil intent. Yun na yung
Okay.
masama.
Partner, eto gusto kong tanungin sa inyong dalawa. No? Kasi, and using again the hypothetical situation, ang nangyari, lumabas ang NBI at nagsabi there's an honey trap operation. Diba? Pero there's no crime under the revised penal code or any special law about honey traps, quote unquote. Diba? So, ngayon nag-iimbestiga. So, ang tanong ko, anong iniimbestigahan? Kung wala namang crime.
That's a good question.
What is being investigated here? Exactly. If there is no crime to begin with, there's no such thing as a honey trap crime. So, what are they actually investigating? That there were lawyers that were approached by certain women and a talent manager alleging that they were asked to come up with false affidavits to trap and incriminate a high government official. So,
Kasi to add to that,
diba?
merong ang isang veteran journalist na sabi sa akin, yung target daw ng honey trap, hindi naman, let's say, merong ganung talagang plano, hindi ta-target ng honey trap kung wala talaga siyang inclination na kumuha ng mga babae. Kasi, bakit ka naman matatrap ng mga babae kung hindi kayong type ng person na nag-hire ng babae rin?
Siguro, we should also take it with a grain of salt. Hindi naman sa magiging devil's advocate dito. No?
please.
What if ang sitwasyon naman pala dito is, okay, sige, nagkaroon ng entrapment. It actually raises so many questions. Unang-una, paano nalaman ng law enforcement na meron? Paano nila minomonitor yun? Ang sumunod naman dito, kaya nang na-discuss natin lengthily kanina, ang consultations, wala namang problema, di ba? Pero ang tanong, dun ba sa nahuli na yon during that incident, I believe in Manila, no? Meron ba nangyaring bayaran? Hindi malinaw, di ba? In fact, kung tama ang pakaalala ko sa nabasa ko na news articles, parang na-prevent yung mga pangyayari.
Yung sting operation.
So hindi na,
yung sting operation.
So hindi na
okay.
hire yung mga babae, hindi na nabayaran.
Dagdagan natin yun, ano? Yung term na may bayaran ba? Magiging malinaw na ang isang abogado mayroong responsibilidad sa ganyang honey trap na tinatawag. Kung sabi niya dun sa mga babae, babayaran ka namin. Kung hindi naman, sige, magkakakaso kayo ng prostitution case or whatever, no? Kung hindi nyo gagawin ito. Kasi doon, nagkakaroon na ng pananakot, meron ka ng pagsuhol doon sa tao. So, lumalabas ka na doon sa responsibilidad mo. Pero kung sasabihin ng abogado, hiningi ang tulong namin para maipaliwanag sa inyo ano ang pwedeng gawin. Sa ilalim ng batas, ang gagawin lang namin ay yung sinabi niyong kwento, ilalagay namin sa affidavit, tapos gagawin niyo uli yan nang kayo ang nakakaalam, hindi kami. Ayun, malinis yun.
So at least with all of these scenarios at yung mga analysis ninyo, kung lumabas na yung katotohanan at malaman natin, ilalagay na lang natin yung kung ano ba yung tamang analysis based on your legal advice. Thank you so much, attorney.
Thank you.
When we return, the closing word from each guest on tonight's question. When does an alleged honey trap plot become a crime? This is Abogado.
We're back. Thank you for staying with us here on Abogado. So, two lines were drawn tonight. The first is between a plan and a punishable act. The second is between legitimate advocacy and participation in wrongdoing. Both are contested and both matter beyond a single headline.
Now let's hear from each of our guests one last time. Attorney Tony, your closing reflection.
Alright. Mahalaga na napag-usapan ito dahil unang-una, kahit ako, ngayon ko lang narinig yung term na honey trap. No? At kahit mag-research tayo, walang Supreme Court jurisprudence on honey trap itself. Again, the planning, wala ring crime yan. No? Ang malinaw lang at ang pinaka-closest na dapat malaman ng marami at ng publiko, yung difference between entrapment and instigation. Doon lang papasok. Ngayon, sa ating mga abogado na involved dito, mahalaga na paalala yung independence, fidelity to client, accountability are very important code of professional responsibility. But, and then, nagkakaroon ng bearing away dyan if you will be part of executing an untruthful statement and devising a plan in committing a wrongdoing. So, siguro maganda na magkaroon ng actual case, madesisyonan ano talaga ang magiging hatol ng husgado tungkol sa honey trap na ito, no? But for now, ang kailangan sa atin, because we're speaking as lawyers, mahalaga na we draw the line between our professional responsibility and our obligation to the client.
Thank you so much, Attorney Tony. Attorney Arbie, your closing statement.
Thank you. Well, siguro balikan ko lang for the benefit ng ating audience, ano, kasi paulit-ulit natin ginagamit yung honey
Oo,
trap.
para yung mga hindi up-to-date sa news, maintindihan naman nila. Paano pinag-uusapan nila?
So, ano nga ba ibig sabihin nun? So, ito po kasing term na to, ito pong honey trap or honey pot trap or honey trap plot.
Yeah.
Basically, ito po ay nanggaling sa sa ating mga journalists in the past and at the same time yung pong ating mga novelists. Specifically yung si John Le Carre,
Yes.
no? Yung author ng mga spy novels.
I used to read a lot of
yung
May pinanggalingan pala tong
Clear
term
and
na to
present
from
danger.
Yes.
a spy novel.
And,
Akala ko ginawa lang for headlines
Concocted by the
ang
journalist.
gamit kasi nila talaga na term dito, yung honey, is to lure,
Yeah.
no? Is to
At
lure.
babae talaga.
At babae.
Okay.
Pero may add ko lang sa history. Even nung panahon, nung mga 60s lalo na, meron din tayong term para sa mga lalaki. Romeo spies.
So pag babae naman ang ine-entrap mo, Romeo?
Oo, pag
Romeo
babae
spies.
yung ito, ang gamit na term, Romeo spy. I believe East Germany ito, galing East Germany.
Actually, I'm glad you mentioned that because I was about to say, without mentioning lang the countries,
Yeah.
but there are certain countries that are actually using the honey trap
Yeah.
to be able to get as their spies high government officials of another country.
Okay.
So we've seen that. We've seen that happen many
Yeah,
times.
yeah.
So they use very good-looking women siguro
Yes,
to
yes,
lure
yes.
men.
And there is one country in particular that's really very good at that, without mentioning the country.
Yes.
Mamaya tatanungin ko. Pagkatapos na-curious ako. Parang hindi ko papapunta yung asawa ko na. Joke lang.
Pero ayun, so at least alam na ng ating audience kung saan nga ba nanggaling
Yes,
yan, ano? But sige, maidadagdag ko lang, base sa na-discuss natin dito, and considering na maraming nanonood sa atin ng mga law students, no? Siguro this is a stark reminder for everyone in the legal profession, yung ating mga law students na nangangarap maging abogado, no? Tandaan natin, no, in this profession, while the honey, no, may catch the fly, but the paper trail catches the lawyer. Diba? Yun ang tandaan natin. So, you must be very picky din sa kung anong i-handle mo, no? And at the same time, we should also remember, no, kung sa practice natin, kung ang ating legal strategy ay kailangan ng honey trap, well, we don't really have a strategy. We have a liability. So, tandaan natin yun.
Okay.
Good point. Good point.
Thank you so much. At a very helpful discussion today. So our thanks to Attorney Antonio Ligon and Attorney Arbie Buenaflor
Again, my
for
pleasure to be
helping
with you.
us
Thank you, thank
unpack a difficult legal question and a controversial issue.
Yes, exactly.
Actually, makukumpleto ko na yata. Yung unang guesting ko, it was drugs.
Yeah.
This time, it's
Honey trap.
sex naman. Rock and roll siguro.
Rock and roll na lang kulang. Well, the law generally leaves thoughts and plans alone. The line is crossed when intent becomes action or when the law specifically punishes conduct at an earlier stage.
Between a plan and a punishable act can be a very fine line. Tonight reminds us why knowing where that line falls matters. This is
Abogado.
Abogado. Good night.